Hi, everyone. It's Monica Kretschmer, and this is the Inspired Podcast. It's my pleasure to be interviewing women of inspiration and the men that support her. These are the individuals that are making an impact locally, nationally, and globally. Today, it's my pleasure to be interviewing a very special lady. She is the founder of the Write Harle, and I'm speaking with our special guest is Lindsay Harle-Kadatz. And Lindsay is a 2019 Woman of Inspiration, an unstoppable force. She is known for connection, for telling stories and connecting people through literature. She's also the author of the Depression Constipation, How Pooping Saved My Sanity. So welcome.
Thank you for having me.
I know that we had a really lovely conversation offline. I wish we had pressed record. It's a true pleasure getting to know you. And I have to say, it was really amazing to see your nomination come through for Women of Inspiration. You were in one of our videos in 2000, actually a picture, and I believe in the video in 2016. That was the very first time you attended the event. So we have lots of history together, and I'm super excited for our listeners and our viewers to get to know a little bit more about you. So welcome.
Welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
So one of the questions that we had when we were behind the scenes was talking about recognition, and you had shared what it meant to be recognized. And I would really love, I wish I had recorded on, because I really think it's important for women and men for that matter to be able to step into the spotlight. And that feeling of recognition is a pretty darn special feeling. You can't bottle it up. If we could, we'd sell it, and hey, maybe. But maybe share with everybody that's listening today, what did that feel like to be recognized?
Honestly, it felt uncomfortable to be recognized. I write content for people for a living, so I love being in the background. I love hearing other people's stories and being able to shine a spotlight on them. So when a spotlight was shone on me, there was a lot of uncomfortable feelings that went with it. And I did have to do a lot of journaling around, why the heck would I be nominated? Why would any of this come to me? And I remember sitting with my peer group and telling them, hey, I've received this nomination. And they were all excited and being like, yeah, that's awesome. You're awesome, fantastic, and powerful. And I just very much brushed it off, being like, oh no, I mean, it's not a big deal. Anybody, blah, blah, blah. And one of my colleagues just stopped me, and she's like, Lindsay, I'm going to tell you something, and it's going to be very blunt. So it might come across as rude. And I was like, well, that's okay, because that's what this group is for. And she stopped me, and she's just like, that's really rude to just brush off other people's congratulations for you. Because we see you as this wonderful, amazing person who is deserving of recognition. So when you say no, it's not a big deal, you're telling us that our own opinion of you doesn't matter. And it was in that moment that I was just like, you know what, she's right. And I absolutely sent her a thank you note after the meeting, after I had time to sit on it and say, thank you for challenging me, because you're absolutely right. This group in particular is a group of women who I value their opinion. I look to them, we guide each other, we support one another. And the last thing I would want is to make somebody feel like their opinion of me doesn't matter, particularly when it's an amazing one. But, so it's that moment of, yeah, I'm uncomfortable with the recognition, but it doesn't make it any less worthy of the recognition. And so it's that mindset of, you know what, somebody saw me this way, and somebody wanted to nominate me as a woman of inspiration. So who am I to say that I'm not? If other people are seeing this. And while we all create our own realities and perspective of who we actually are in the long run, shouldn't we be taking on that perspective of somebody believes in me, so I should believe in myself? And if I can have that courage to say, yeah, I am worthy, it
Mm-hmm.
could then spur somebody on to say, yeah, I too am worthy. So I'm just going to keep going. So uncomfortable, heck yes, but necessary to move forward in that uncomfortable situation. Yeah, yeah. And I'm beyond grateful for the recognition.
Well, and I'm so happy that we did have that conversation in the green room before we did this podcast, because when you were sharing your story of, brushing off that, congratulations, and somebody, and I think she had actually nominated you, and, they so significant,
Mm-hmm.
the accomplishment, and your peers having somebody, wanting so much to see you succeed. But why do you think we automatically dismiss it? Why do you feel? I mean, this is just, why do you think that we're conditioned to just brush it off?
I honestly don't know. I know for me, I've always been very uncomfortable. Um, just with, I've never wanted to have an ego or be seen as somebody with an ego. And so I'm very conscious of pushing away any recognition so that I can be humble. And
Mm-hmm.
I personally have not learned how to be confident and humble at the same time. So this is something that's very much challenged me to look at. How can I be confidently humble about what I've done? I think a lot of us, and one of my biggest struggles is that I'm normal. I have a very normal story. There's nothing really romantic or idealized or crazy. There's crazy about my story and growing up. And so is the recognition of, why are you recognizing me for being normal, for
Mm-hmm.
going through what so many people go through?
Mm-hmm.
And that's really where it comes through, is it comes from, is that uncomfortableness of, for me at least, is a lot of people do this. A lot of people start their own businesses. A lot of people go through the depression and succeed in life. A lot of people, are willing and able to get up and put themselves on stage, or a crap ton of, part of my language. Oh, PG-13,
Oh,
hopefully.
we're okay. We're okay.
A lot of people have written books.
Mm-hmm.
And so who in the world am I to be like, well, I did it too, and I got an award. And so it's very much this keep your ego in check mentality of not what I was brought up with, but what I was believed I was taught.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of scripting that we have in, be humble, the praise goes to everybody else. And do not get me wrong, I would not be where I am today had I not had the support systems in place and the confidence instilled in me by my parents, by my sister, by my friends, by my husband, and by my dogs even, right? But that didn't come all at once.
Mm-hmm.
And it was even last week, my husband came home with a shadow box for my own Woman of Inspiration Award.
Oh, I
Because
love it.
he didn't want me just being like, well, I got this, okay, put it away, and ignore the fact that something really good happened. So he's just like, you're putting your award in this. So I've got my award, and then I've got the picture of us there, and then some of the congratulation cards. And it's just that moment of, he's right.
Mm.
I need to sit in that and be like, yeah, you know what? That was a big thing.
Mm.
And I have
Where's
done
your
things.
award? Do you have it? Do you have it around?
I do. It's
Like,
I don't know where. You know what? Hold on a second. I'll go grab it.
oh my goodness. Like, I love how you're really embracing this. It's so, I'm excited to see this
Yeah.
magnificent way that you're honoring yourself and your accomplishments.
Yeah. So that's what my husband brought home.
Oh, it's beautiful. Here, I'm going to take a picture. We're going to take a picture because we gotta share that. This is live. So for those of you that are listening right now, I'm actually taking this big, beautiful picture. I'm going to chop myself out of that. Okay. And it's a shuttle box that Lindsay's husband has created so that she could put all her mementos from the Woman of Inspiration Awards and the award. And I see a picture of your marriage. And it's just so beautiful. What it symbolizes is hard work, support, love, trust, respect. It validates you as a human. It's beautiful. I think
Yeah.
it's so incredible. Thank you for sharing that with me.
Well, it wasn't my idea, right? But it was my husband's of, you deserve to celebrate this. Stop minimizing it. Stop minimizing it, because I mean, the ultimate truth is, I have known people over the past few years who have also been nominated who have not been recipients, right? And so my husband's just like, Lindsay, own it. Stop belittling who you are. And it's basically just how we grew up, right? Is we're told, yeah, absolutely celebrate the successes, but be quiet about it. And then just shove them away and keep moving forward.
Well, I'm happy that we're changing that.
Yeah.
And that's just, it's baby steps for sure. And that's why I think it's really important to talk about it. I know there was a couple things that fall out of the award celebration. Is everybody wants to know, well, what is her story? They want to know your story. They want to see that story from the everyday heroes. And that's why we're actually having the podcast here right now. And so I think that the stories and your journeys, and even how you're working through that, embracing the confidence authentically and humbly, I think you're doing it. You said, I don't know how to get to being able to celebrate and also be humbled at the same time. I think you're actually doing it right now, to be honest. I think you've achieved that. And I think what that does is it really sets the stage for those that are listening, and that they can do that too, because it's so important. When we validate our hard work, we want to do more of it, right? And on our bad days, we can go back and brush the dust off and just say, yes.
Yeah.
I did that.
Just this week even, I did a decade in review, just to be like, okay, well, what have I done this decade? Because you kind of sit and you think there, well, not much has happened, right? Hours later, I realized this was a very balanced decade. There was some highs, and there was some lows. But there was lessons in every single year from all the highs and all the lows, and that all comes together, and you just sort of sit back and realize, I'm living. I'm happy. Ultimately, because when I can reflect back and look at a decade of ups and downs and the lessons, and particularly, when I was diagnosed with depression, anxiety in 2011, and then I moved through my purging, and I stopped my purging as a coping mechanism. And in my head, I thought, depression's done, great. Well, then 4 years later, I have my first huge dip. And then 2 years after that, I have another dip, right? And so it really just sort of shows, hey, this is something that is going to be recurring in you. You get to now understand what's happening, when, and why, and better communicate that with your support system. But also look at what you've done during those dips, right? Like, look at the work that you did, look at the business that you built, look at the communication processes that you did with your clients during those dips to be able to get through that period in a successful manner without, completely ruining your own reputation. Because at the end of the day, you're dealing with a human. And so the decade itself has really taught me that, we can reflect back and see all these lessons of, what, at the end of the day, it may be I'm normal, but everybody else is too. So can't we just move through these together and see our own journeys together, and, realize that nobody necessarily has it better or worse, that at the end of the day, we're all balanced. Is just, how are we looking at it? And, what I thought originally was a really shitty decade was really a great one. After that exercise, it's just like, holy smokes, a lot happened.
Yeah.
Really good stuff, really bad, but really, it just all comes together and the lessons are there and you're moving forward. And as you're sharing that, I'm finding that's kind of at least what I see is, that's what my clients are connecting with,
Mm.
is
Well,
the real human part of it.
and I think what you do so beautifully is that you keep it, you're sharing it. You're sharing that you're moving through your journey and the highs and the lows, and you're recognizing where you are in that place. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the women of inspiration are just like you and me. They're the everyday heroes. But the difference is that you are consistently on this journey, giving back, sharing your knowledge. I know that each and every one of our award recipients are very much in a place of service,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? So the women of inspiration, you're the everyday heroes, but there's just something really special about our women of inspiration. And your leaders, your individuals, and you're humble and confident at the same time, all of you.
I remember before the day in the mountains, I had a
And for
conversation with
maybe I'll just
yeah.
preface that the day in the mountains, I'll just share that this year was the first year that we did it. We did a woman of inspiration experience. I just felt that in your big, supporter of connection, I just thought we had connected everybody online so beautifully that I wanted to have a way that we would engage all of the women of inspiration, invite some alumni to meet all of the nominees, and also our partners and supporters as well, and our sponsors. And I thought, what a great way. We just go out to the mountains and we'd have this really beautiful event. And it was actually, I don't think we could have planned a more picture perfect day. And
Beautiful. Yeah.
the deepening of the relationships that happened out of that, by the time you got to the awards, you were like best friends.
It was amazing. I was so nervous going to the day in the mountains, because in my head, these were all, as they are, all amazing women, but I was not on their level. And they would be all well poised. I've read all their bios, and I'm just these women have done so gosh darn much. What am I going to talk about? But at least I'm going to be there. I'll show up. And I talked with my mom, and one of her good friends growing up was Aricia Lenny, and she was the Western Economic Diversification with the federal government for a long time. So I grew up with this amazing, very powerful woman, but in my head, she was my mom's friend, right? And so my mom just said to me, look for the Risses, because she's confident, kind, well-spoken, very decorated, but she's very approachable. And I can guarantee that a number of these women are going to be the same. And so I went into that day thinking, look for the Risses. Yeah. And I was blown away by the kindness, the open arms, the ability to joke around right away. Like, I have a very weird sense of humor, and it could be very crass and off-putting at sometimes. So I never know really when to pull it out, especially in a group of women. It works a lot better with 12-year-old boys. So it's kind of, but this group of women, they just accepted me and they welcomed me, and it was just, you're here, you're our equal, and let's just talk and keep moving and inspiring. And it was definitely a turning point that allowed me to then get up on the stage. Otherwise, I don't know if I would have been able to get up there as confidently as I did. I don't know, I was taped a lot in my dress. So.
I have got to share, you were not the only one.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of women that are like, it's just, how do we move past that point to say you're good enough? And I think that it's really important to talk about that, share that, and thank you for sharing and being open and honest about that, because we can all like speed fast that point because we don't want to actually admit that maybe we were like a little bit, intimidated, but everybody felt the same way. And I think that we're making some great choices of how we're sharing this now.
Yes.
because
Yeah.
I'm thinking, you said, oops, I swore, is this PG-13? And I'm actually thinking in my mind, as you said that, I really hope that we have some young ladies and men that are actually going to dig in and, devour this knowledge, because it is so key. And to know that everybody has that same kind of fear of, something that's uncomfortable when we've never experienced before. It's always scary for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh,
And
yeah.
anything that we do, anything for the first time,
Yep.
it's not going to be perfect. But, and then there's also that fear of acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
So very powerful. And our women of inspiration, just saying, all leaders, and the beautiful pieces that we can continue and grow our journey together. So,
Oh, yeah.
super excited to see how those connections have built. Now, I'm going to ask you about your journey a little bit. So you wrote a book, and so maybe you can tell us a little bit about your book. Title is very telling. It's about mental illness. So maybe you can share with everybody that's listening, how you discovered this and what inspired you to write your book.
Right. So I live with depression and anxiety. But my core self, as my aunt once put it, is I am a happy-go-lucky elf. So I'm a jokester. I'm it's just who I am. I love puns. It's in my business as well. That said, living with depression, obviously, I had my down moments. And when I was first diagnosed, my psychologist said to me, Lindsay, you just look at the world in such a unique way. And you always look at it for the humor. Do you write your stories down? And I didn't. And so part of my own therapy was using humor and writing funny stories in my life, because I just had this ability to look at life and find funniness in it. In the most mundane things. And so that's really how the story started to come around. But then this is kind of the crass part, so I apologize. How I came up with the idea of depression constipation itself was, plain and simple. I was struggling to poop. And then I did. And it was just the best feeling in the world. It was this relief. It was like life is going to be okay. After this struggle that you tried to get through, you finally made it through. And so it's just that lean back, relax of, yeah, we did it, baby. Right?
Yeah.
And then a very good friend of mine at the time, she was also going through her own depression journey. And so I sent her a message just saying, I had an amazing poop. We need to bottle this feeling up because I think that's what will cure our depression. Joking, right? But the more I thought about it, I was like, depression and constipation actually have a lot in common. And it was a really good way to start sharing with my then boyfriend, now husband, what depression was. Because up to then, he didn't really believe in it. He thought it was sad. Get the fuck over it, right? And so when I started drawing these parallels of, well, no, I actually get a really bad stutter. And it's kind of like little farts that come out, right? When you're constipated. Or you have this distended reality where, like, for instance, like I have to grab onto things when that cognitive dissonance starts to kick in. Well, you sometimes get a lovely little distended belly when there's constant, right? So it was just this way of being able to say, look, depression is not about being sad. Here's a bunch of other symptoms that I know very well can relate to. Let's just start having a bit more crass conversation around it because yes, depression's serious. Absolutely it is. But you know what? There's so much laughter in this world.
Oh, yes. And
there's so much.
You, my dear, bring it on.
Well, frick, I walk into enough walls, I make enough people laugh that way. So, but that's just it, right? Is how can we start to find our own, like, I know for me personally, my own depression journey started because I had a huge loss of identity, a huge loss of identity, which is outlined in the book. But it was just, well, how now do I find my own identity again? Who the heck am I? What are these feelings? What are my values? And it really became about identifying where in my life I was misaligned, because the corporate job I was in while their EAP program saved my life. And I will forever be grateful for the company that I was at and the team that I had. The company itself didn't actually have the values that I have in my life that were important that I have in a work position. So it was just really having to get clear on, who am I? What job will support my values as a person? Turns out I was able to find it on my own by creating the Write Harle. And fortunately, I bring something unique to the table for clients these days. But that was the biggest thing, is just I wanted people. I know that I didn't get the help I needed for a long time because nobody talked about it other than you're a failure and you're sad. That's what I believed depression to be. I didn't know that it wasn't sad and a failure. Right. And so that like the biggest reason for that book is just for people who are living either with depression or anxiety or any sort of eating disorder, because I was a purger. The book is just really there to say, hey, you're not alone. That it sucks, but there's so much beauty in life as well. And here's some of the funny things that can happen. Here's some ways that you might be able to go and sort, but also go and get professional help if you need it, because I am not a doctor, and I make that very clear. But that's really what it's about, is just you're good enough.
I gotta say, you're gonna be like on my mind every time I want to go to the ladies' room now. Is be like,
that's my goal. I want everybody to think of me when they're on the toilet.
Daily, a couple times a day. Just saying.
Well, great. Excellent. I'll wait for my ears to ring. But like I said, it's crass, but so many people understand it a lot better than depression. And when you're just like, well, hey, yeah, they're very different. And I do recognize that it is an incredibly simplified way of understanding depression, that it completely ignores a lot. But you know what? It gets some stigma gone, and it gets
people remember it
going, and people remember it. Yeah. And people remember it.
So that was a great explanation for the why. And so your book, available.
Oh yeah.
Where's your book available for those people that, are struggling with that? I think it's really important that they actually can find out how they can get a copy. Is it on Amazon?
It is on Amazon. Yeah.
Awesome.
You do have to search my full last name. So that's Harle-Kadatz, HARLE-Kadatz. Helps if you sing it. But yes, it is on Amazon. Or you can reach out and connect with me, and I can find you a copy. Find you a copy, I suppose.
Well, I know that there's probably people that are watching or driving in their cars right now listening to the podcast, and they're probably going, you know what, I really need to get a copy of that book. So hopefully you'll see some book sales spike after this podcast and interview. But thank you so much for your honesty. I know that these things are not easy to talk about them, no matter how many times you talk about them. You're being vulnerable, sharing your story, but these are the stories and the feelings that when people are looking up to somebody that's inspiring, they want to see that. They're expecting a story. They're expecting a challenge. They're not expecting that the road has been really smooth. That's not so inspiring if the road's been smooth. No, if the road has potholes and tar and, if it come out, whatever. I mean, so many things we can talk about on the road, but I think that's what's so exciting, and that's exactly what's so inspiring, is that you have a beautiful journey and you're working through that and inspiring others.
Thank you. And all I want to know is, how do people get their lines in their face? And, what are the stories that created the laugh lines or the frown lines or the smile? Like, what are those stories that have created the energy in your face?
Okay. Can you see? I got a couple.
I'm there with you. We got some stories, Monica.
I need like Q-tips. I need Q-tips on to get in the creases and the ones on my forehead. Just saying.
I have a roller of like tea tree stuff, and it doesn't go everywhere anymore.
Well, I see you have your beautiful bangs.
Yeah.
Bangs or Botox?
No, bangs. And sometimes though, when they grow too long, I have to lift them up to show people my eyebrows that I have emotions. Otherwise, it's a stiff face.
You are so funny. Oh my God, I could just talk to you forever.
I get you.
we're gonna talk more. We're gonna have some more interviews coming up. I have a feeling I would love. I want to kick off our 2020 Women of Inspiration tours. So for those that are listening and those that are watching our Women of Inspiration tour, featuring the stories of women of inspiration across Canada. It's on my radar. Let's move those mountains. Let's make it happen. Mm-hmm. And love to have you a part of that. I think that would be really exciting and to really break that stigma of mental illness, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Make it understandable and make it okay.
Depression can have a smile. You can have a smile. And what's the most interesting thing is if you do have depression, there's so much shame when you start to be happy. And so it's that's the most interesting thing is we almost always have shame, whether we feel as a failure or as we're moving towards being happy. And so it's just, how do we just move through all these feelings and own ourselves and be like, this is me and I'm okay. And this is worth it. And happy is okay. A little depressed is okay. Like being ridiculously quirky, it's okay. Being totally we are okay as we are. And that's the biggest lesson I think we all need to just learn is we are beautiful, wonderful creatures who don't know our own power.
And I'm so enlightened by your words. I always end our, interviews with, please share your words of wisdom. Just, is there anything else that you want to share with our audience and our listeners today?
Oh my gosh. Whew. Honestly, it's sort of funny. It's the number of times that I have slipped and been able to laugh at myself rather than beating myself up for the fact that I slipped that's the most powerful thing is how can I laugh a little bit more each day? That's important for me. And, I know another, like little goals, like, for instance, when I was depressed, a little goal of, I wanted to be out of my apartment for 5 minutes every day and I needed to shower. That's all I had to do. So just give yourself the grace for being where you're at in that moment. Just give yourself the grace because you're doing beautifully as best you can for where you're at in the moment.
I love that. I think that's a really great place to leave it because I think that it relates to absolutely everyone. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. Yep. So, Lindsay, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm so glad that you have an amazing husband and support system in your world and that you are embracing every single part of your journey. You are a woman of inspiration, and I look forward to the journey with you and all our alumni and inspiring. And I just get super excited when I hear stories of how it's touching and making an impact. And I think talking about it is going to certainly open up the door for others to say, hey, I'm going to nominate some woman because she inspires me, and not ask her approval, just saying, don't ask for approval, just do it.
Yeah. Oh,
let her decide.
Yeah. Let him decide. The biggest shock I had was when I got that you've been nominated. And then I was just like, this is real? Okay. Right. It was just a moment of, holy smokes, somebody sees me.
So let me ask you something before I end. So since the awards, you've stepped into this woman of inspiration title. How does that feel? Has anything shifted for you?
I think my own value of myself. Up until this point, there's been it's a huge story. It's a huge story. No, my own brain itself hadn't been recovered, so really I've been working on my own journey of healing my brain and the neurological damage that had been done during my last depression. But having that title, I feel that it's pushing me. I need to live up to it. So if I have been presented with women of inspiration, well, I can't now be like, whatever, who can, but I need to still live up to this, right? I will not rest on my laurels is essentially who I am. And what that means is then I need to continue to push myself, but I also need to believe in myself. So there's been so much journaling and continued gratefulness. And I know what's interesting is as I've started to really be like, I have this power. What's interesting is the new energies that are coming in and the opportunities that are coming in. And it's not because they know I am a woman of inspiration. It's just because of the energy I'm putting into myself and into the proposals I'm putting out, into the relationships I'm building. So the energy that's coming now is lifting me up and supporting me in that role of a woman of inspiration, whereas before it hadn't.
It's a mindset.
It's a total mindset, and it's a total, you need to, I had to journal myself to worthiness of acceptance of the award. I had to journal myself to being able to get up on that stage to give that acceptance speech. And like, I still have to journal to say I deserved it. And I still, to this day, even though I may feel like a fraud, even though I know I look gorgeous.
Syndrome. Right. Nobody has
that. Oh, yeah. And
so common. So common.
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. And like even I'm reading Presence by Amy Cuddy right now because it's important that I'm pushing myself to be, hey, you were noticed as a woman of inspiration, so you now need to live up to that standard continually. Keep doing what you're doing, but believe it now. And as I've started to believe it, the energy has changed, the business has changed, it's crazy. Mindset is crazy in how we show up and when we start to believe. And Andy and I, my husband, he and I had just had, every time that phone rang over the past 2.5 years, it was bad news. And so the hardest part is just believing the good news. This is really good news. So let's just stay with it for a bit. We don't need to just shove it away and then wait for that phone to ring again to be bad news. So it's really kind of changed that mindset of balance. Good comes. Bad comes too. But it's all relative. But you get to sit in the good just as you need to sit in the bad. And I think that's the biggest lesson too. And I'd been sitting in the bad too long, and this reminded me that we need to sit in the good too.
And be okay. And step in the spotlight.
Yeah. And exactly. And be okay with stepping in the spotlight.
Beautiful.
Because chances are every single other one of those women of inspiration having to get up on the stage and felt the exact same thing. They
had no idea the impact that they were making. Really, you're working hard on your journey, working hard mastering your craft, and you don't know the ripple effect that it's creating around you. And I can tell you without a doubt, every single woman, regardless of what stage in her dream that she was building she was in at the time, every single person had that same feeling. They're like, why me? So I am so excited to watch this journey and be on this journey with you. And I thank you for your honesty. I thank you for your authenticity. It's beautiful. And I am so tickled, and I can't wait for the lucky woman that is going to end up being working with you on our Mentor Her program for the year, which is an opportunity for all of our women of inspiration to mentor other women. So I'm really excited for the lucky lady that gets to be a mentor to work with you for that journey. So thank you so much. I look forward to the next time that we can interview. And for those of you watching, this was the Inspired Podcast. I was speaking today with Woman of Inspiration 2019, Lindsay Harle-Kadatz. Thank you, of the Write Harle. Keep shining, my friend, and leading with purpose. Hearts for you.
Hearts for you. Hearts all over.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Thank you.